Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to AM and TK. I'm Tanya König.
Hi, everybody. I am the AM in that scenario, Ana Maria. It's so good to see all of you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you and to you.
And to you. Yeah, we haven't seen each other, I think, since before Christmas. So.
Exactly. It's been already a few days, but
And what days? I mean, if you talk about a start to a new year, that's, I mean, you can't even make that stuff up. You cannot make it up.
yeah, you probably know what we're referring to. You probably all saw the riot in Washington, D.C. To the Capitol, which was so surreal. I caught myself watching CNN for
Hours.
hours because I just couldn't believe what was going on.
It's unbelievable that in a place like the United States, these kinds of things can happen. But, those are the times we're living in. So volatile and so uncertain and with so many emotions. And yes, I can only hope that that's not necessarily the indication of what's to come for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I really hope that this is the end of something of that whole era and not the start of something worse.
You and I both, man. You and I both.
And
Again,
let's not
hope.
forget, people died on that day.
Yes, people died. Absolutely. There were deaths involved. And you think these are things that happen in other places, not in one of the top countries in the world. But yeah, listen, again, let's just hope that this is not an indication of things to come. Let's just hope this is, like you said, what it kind of took to close that chapter and to close that era.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a bit naive to think that, but I really hope.
Yeah,
so.
me too. Me too. But I'm also, as naive as this may sound, I'm also one to believe that the last thing you lose is hope. So I'm not giving up. Things are gonna get better.
Yeah, and we hope that you are also doing well wherever you're right now. It's tough times, but we want to try to bring some levity, and so we're gonna switch the topic now, because what I also did over Christmas, New Year, I checked out your website.
Oh Lord.
You can tell how much time I had.
Yes. I was gonna say you must have had a lot of free time, sister, because yeah.
And I was like, I'm curious to know with whom I'm actually working. I mean, of course, I know you being a colleague slash friend, but
Friend/colleague. If I can clarify.
but I feel like we know each other from our last workplace, but there's so much that you have done before that, and
actually, you and I met before that too.
we did.
At the Zurich Film Festival.
We did.
I remember we did our audition there. Not our audition, but our training session there together.
Absolutely.
I was so freaked out. That was so funny.
Yeah, that was good when we then started our job at CNN and Money, and we met, and I was like, oh, there's someone I know somehow a little bit.
Yeah, totally. Nice.
But yeah, so I went on your website and I saw all those videos. I loved it. So I don't know if you know, but Ana Maria Montero used to be an anchor at CNN and CNN Espanol, and she also covered Hollywood, lifestyle, entertainment, and there were these videos interviewing Jennifer Lopez, Jane Fonda, Will Smith, who else?
A lot.
Julio Iglesias.
Oh, Julio Iglesias. That's right. Wow.
So
He hit on me. That was very weird. Well, I mean, I'm not surprised though. He hits on everybody.
okay, now you're excusing yourself.
No.
So before or after the interview?
Just before the interview, as we were waiting, and my parents were watching because this happened in the studio in Atlanta, and my parents were like standing around because, of course, for them, Julio Iglesias was a bit of an eminence, And so when I told them that I was interviewing him in the Atlanta studios, they were like, "Oh, can we come?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, you can come." And in front of my dad, he's making like comment, yeah. And I think my dad was just too distracted to listen here, or maybe his hearing was going at the time, but he never flagged it. But I was like, really? In front of my parents? What is wrong with you?
Well, he's Latino.
Yeah. He's the lover, the Latin lover.
it's part of his image, maybe.
Exactly.
To play that card.
Totally.
So how did you become a media person? How did you got into media? Was that something that you always dreamed of?
No. I never. I was really quite. Even though I'm an extrovert, and now I'm this, very kind of talkative adult. When I was a kid, I was really pretty shy. I was quite insecure, and yeah. I wasn't. I was a talker, but I wasn't one to put myself out there. If I may, I had some like self-esteem issues too. So I just never saw myself as somebody that was ever going to be in the front lines of anything, right? And so growing up, I just liked to write. And I liked to write, and I was
you had a diary?
in stories. Yeah, I was very creative, and I had a lot of stories in my head. And I was actually one of those kids that would talk to themselves quite a bit. And
with imaginary friends or
imaginary friends, and
which is totally normal.
I think so at a certain age. But in the third grade, I remember my teacher, my language arts and reading teacher, telling me, you should be a journalist. I was like, I don't know. How old are you then? 8, 9? And I was thinking, what is that? Okay, cool. It's not something that I ever really pursued, And then, but again, I was always very creative and liked the writing, but never quite putting 2 and 2 together. And then when I went to college, I didn't study journalism. I studied marketing and advertising. And really just out of
didn't know what to do.
Not doing, just out of, absolutely. And they're like, well, that sounds kind of creative. Okay, maybe I'll do that. I did work in an ad agency for a while, way before the Mac made a comeback. So it was like, cut and paste, and hand drawing, and oh my gosh. But yeah, I wasn't.
Good times, no? As well.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like dinosaur times, actually. Feels like technology and those businesses have changed so much that it feels like I'm talking about,
Was that 20 years ago?
Yes.
More or less?
More or less.
More? Okay.
More or less. Yeah. Anyway, so I didn't discover media properly until I was almost done with my university studies. And I wanted to work for the Olympic Games in Atlanta at the time. Okay, now you can do the math. And they were looking for bilingual people, and they said, we have this program where you can liaise with journalists. But we need you to do these courses in TV production. And I thought, what? Okay. I was in no hurry to graduate. So I said, okay. And I added another year to my studies doing this. But that's when I discovered TV.
Were you still an introvert at that time?
I think I maybe had come a little bit more out of my shell. But yeah, I was still the only girl in a traditional Spanish family, so only brothers. So yeah, my role was somehow they expected me to go to university and get a degree, but I was told, then you take your degree and you hang it on the wall and you raise your family. Oh, wow. Yeah, those were the expectations.
Huh.
So I didn't have expectations.
Yeah.
I was living in this kind of like, well, I don't have a boyfriend, and I know I'm supposed to be a mother, so I'm just kind of doing whatever I want for the moment. Whatever just kind of comes my way. So that's I think I always had a certain personality, but I wasn't putting myself out there, so to speak. Yeah.
It's interesting to see that then you still went to a job like being on camera.
Well, so that didn't happen. So part of that training I did for the Olympic Broadcasting Service was to get this minor in broadcast journalism, and then in there was an internship. Mm-hmm. And the first place I approached was the Atlanta Journal and Constitution, so a traditional newspaper. And they said they didn't have any openings. But then there was CNN was down the street from the university, so I thought, well,
You grew up in Atlanta.
in Atlanta, exactly,
where the headquarters are of CNN.
Exactly. And anyway, I showed up there at the intern office, at the HR office, and I said I'd like an internship. They said, well, the waiting list is a year, but you can fill out this paperwork, right? I was like, oh.
So you waited for a year?
No, I happened to check off that I spoke Spanish. Yeah, and which is the second most or third most spoken language in the world. I'm just saying. So I said at the time. And she told me to come back. Like I was leaving and she called me back and said, you speak Spanish? And I said, yes. And she picks up the phone and she goes, Natalie, I have an intern here for you. She hung up the phone.
Are you kidding?
Yes. No. I mean, no, I'm not kidding.
Yes, that's how it happens. But no, not kidding.
Yeah, that's how it happened. And I started very much behind the scenes. Again, I was just fulfilling a requisite, you know.
So you say Spanish. Why was it already for CNN Espanol or
CNN Spanish was my first internship? Yeah, CNN Spanish. Before it was Espanol, it was Spanish. So I started there we shared the newsroom with Headline News at the time, and I started there again behind the scenes, editorial assistant, production assistant, whatever,
doing everything.
Assistants. Yes, yeah.
Internship at the time, were they paid?
No, free.
For how long?
3 months.
Okay.
3 months. And but fortunately it turned out they needed my services as an EA for the newsroom, so I stayed on. And
what does EA mean?
Editorial assistant.
Oh, okay.
And so I was able to stay on. And then I did 3 months in TV and I did 3 months in radio. And then I signed on as a freelancer.
CNN had radio at the time?
Yeah, CNN radio.
Oh. Okay, we don't know it here.
I mean, I think it's right out there with like Voice of America. I mean, you know, it's not common. And to your point, I don't know how strong the radio service is at CNN these days.
Okay, well, I mean, here we know mostly CNN International is what we get, right?
No.
But then in the US, you have all CNN National and, as you say, Espanol. Okay, and then, I mean, that is intern level. And then at some point you were on-camera person, anchor, red carpet at the Oscars. Yes. People knew you or know you. When did that happen?
Well,
That's maybe a big jump, huh?
the short. I'll try to keep it. Keep it brief. I did my first on-camera job as an intern.
Yeah.
I did a story. My boss just came to me one day and said, hey, by the way, you know, you need to do a story. So go spend the night at the zoo with a kindergarten class and do that story. And what I remember the most about that, other than it being the first time I was assigned a story and I didn't even know where to start, I had a very lovely cameraman. Joel, if you're watching, if you happen to hear this, I am still so appreciative for your patience that day, because it must have taken me 2 hours to record a 10-second stand-up. I mean, it was insane. We did it so many times. And what was funny is it was late at night and it's very humid in Atlanta. So I start with my hair down, and then as time progresses, it gets frizzier and frizzier and frizzier. So the final outcome is I've got my hair like pasted to the back of my head in a ponytail. Oh my God. Wow.
Because you have difficult hair with the curlies and everything.
Yes, and the humidity, you know, just made it bigger and bigger and bigger. And so as time went on, my hair just grew. And in the end, it was tied back. But anyway, I digress. So that was the first thing. And they don't normally air interviews or stories that an intern would do because you're not paid. But he said he liked it so much that he aired it. And I thought, okay, cool. But I still wasn't like, I'm going to go out and be a journalist. You know, I was just like, okay, that's great. Cool. I'm still going to be a mom, by the way. You know?
So you didn't have that...
No, not yet. Although I had discovered television production and I thought it was cool and I really liked the visual medium and it really fit with my creative kind of way of thinking. And then I worked through the end of my university career with them again as an editorial assistant. I went back to that. I didn't do another story, but they were testing a new newsroom just before I left. And so they asked me to sit in and be their mock presenter.
So they saw your talent.
Listen, I don't know.
Whatever was
Whatever
there
that
already.
was. Or maybe I was just available, which is also probably true. But, I remember
Come
sitting
on.
there. Abel Dumont, if you're hearing me, Tom, Corey, if you remember those days. I sat there in the newsroom and I just read the scripts, and so they were able to practice. And then as I was leaving on one of my last days there, because so at that point then I had gotten a scholarship to do post-grad studies that next fall. And so I was leaving to go to Spain. I was moving to Spain. I was never coming back. And
Okay.
I was never going to Europe and never coming back. I was just going to total Eurofab the rest of my life. And I went to, it was one of the last days, and my boss said to me, I think it's great that you're going out and doing something else, and kind of growing and whatever. He goes, but when you're done with that, come back because we have a home for you.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, that's so cool, Rolando Santos, but I'm never coming back. I was like, what are you nuts? Thank you, but I'm never coming back. And famous last words. But again, I left and I made a cut and I said, I'm never coming. Like, I had said goodbye to that somehow.
Huh.
Because again, I was thinking that's not the end goal here. The end goal is not for me to have this career, right?
Was still to be a mom and have kids.
Yeah. And at this point, I had already met my boyfriend and we were quite serious and he was very eventually acceptable to my family. And it just seemed like that was what I was supposed to do. So anyway, I'll almost finish with this story in case you're all like, oh, this is the last, so the jump, so to speak, really happened when I arrived in Madrid. Shortly after arriving there, because even though they said, come back, we have a home for you. And they said, we'll put you in contact with a producer out there. And I said, no, no, I'm just done. This producer out there pursued me, found me, long story short, and pursued me to the point where I was like, okay, what do you want? Of course I was flattered, but I was also like, I don't know what I'm going to do here for you. Right. I'm not looking to be like a news correspondent or anything. And he's like, well, he goes, oh, I don't need a news correspondent. I need somebody to do entertainment interviews
in Madrid.
In Madrid. For US market. And
were there so many stars? Was Julio Iglesias in Spain?
Enrique Iglesias.
I was in Spain.
Yeah.
At the time.
He was just starting his career. He was starting his career. So he was one of the first people that I interviewed. It was insane because I was never a celebrity person. I was never like following entertainment news. I was totally like out of the loop, like a total nerd in that sense. And when they said to me, we want you to do these interviews, I thought, you're crazy. Yeah. Wait a minute, am I the only person in the room? Like, not possible. And no, we help you, we support you, you'll be fine. And then we just started. And those almost 2 years with them in that small production house in Madrid was like my learning, was my real school, my real television school, where I first learned how to work with cameras and think of shots and lighting and edit and putting stories together visually. I mean, everything I'd learned in university was like, not useful.
TV is so much on the job. But it's interesting to hear that actually how you got into this, it was more the outside factors that pushed you in there, or people would see a potential in you that you weren't seeing yet. So it was not something, because for me it was a bit the other way. It was more like I wanted to do it, so I knew that was the thing. For you, it was more people outside, and if that producer never came to you, maybe you would never have done it. So. Right? Sometimes you need someone to support you.
Absolutely. I mean, hands down. Especially, as I told you in the beginning, I was never a person with a high self-esteem. I always really struggled. And talk for another time. But, I just never saw the potential in myself. I didn't see, I'm being completely honest, I didn't see my value. I didn't understand that I was bringing something to the table that maybe was different or whatever, or useful. So I can only thank God and everybody that's surrounded me in my life that you said, who saw what I didn't see and allowed me to have that start. That being said, once that door was opened, I knew it was my responsibility to walk through that and do the work, because that's the opportunities. People can throw you opportunities all day long, but you have to really show up and do it.
Absolutely. So then you took that chance and actually made something out of it. And I can imagine that probably you were even more, because you were given that task and you didn't feel like so comfortable with it, then maybe you would even work harder to
compensate.
Yeah. I don't know. Was it like that?
Yes. And, and I think, and I'm very, I was also very self-critical. I think it goes hand in hand with the kind of the low self-esteem, that those things go together. So I was very hard on myself and a perfectionist to an extent. So I think that made my climb even harder. It's like throwing on a backpack of rocks when you're trying to, climb up the face of a mountain. It's,
which you can never be perfect.
I know. No. And I always say these days, I think people on camera have it that much harder, because back in my day when I started, if that tape disappeared, it was gone forever. And all of your mistakes could be gone forever. And nobody was ever going to know what you did or what you said or how you messed up or what you look like.
It was not online. It didn't go. It went on air and that was it. And no one posted it. And
cheers.
Yeah, now I think the pressure is, if I think back just at times when I see teenagers now on social media, what they post, and I'm sure my age at 16, I was also that kind of teenager with my friends. We would take pictures and with our actual film roll camera, and we had nowhere to post, and I'm glad we didn't. Really, seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very grateful for that.
That it was very interesting to listen to how you started, and I think we should maybe keep how your career went on for our next episode. So
sure, because I've talked forever.
No, it's good. So we have the beginnings, and then people can look forward. So in our next episode, we'll either talk about we go on with your career or with my startings. We'll see how we want to go, but you can definitely learn more, and hopefully it also inspires you.
I hope so. I think there's a lot to be just learned from other people's experiences, and especially from our F-ups and our mistakes. And as you can see, we're quite open. So yeah, we'll continue to do that.
Absolutely. And for me, it was a first also to hear your story. So, sometimes we just work together and actually never.
Yeah. It's not sometimes not relevant, right? But
exactly. Okay, if you liked what you saw, then make sure to subscribe to our channel, AM and TK on YouTube, to show us some love, support.
Always welcome.
You don't miss the next episode,
which is soon. All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.